the big question. So why the hell are you guys doing this? Why are we putting ourselves out there?
I know.
We ask ourselves
That's a good question. That's
I mean,
really good
it's
question.
so shitty out there sometimes, especially in the comments section.
Yeah.
You guys have done really well, and the kids are healthy, moved on, living their lives. You guys are able to kind of go around, and we're going to talk more specifically about that. Why put yourself out there to death by 1,000 needles?
It wasn't actually our idea. So when we decided a few years ago when we lived in Los Angeles that we were always individually looking up cute small towns all over the country. Like he would call me and say, hey, I just came across this yahoo.com article about Yahoo News about this great town in New York. Or I would say to him, oh my gosh, there's this like little hidden treasure in Texas or where we've been doing this for years.
Yeah.
So we decided that when the last one was off to college, we were just going to sell everything. We were talking about it. Our friends didn't believe us, but we said, we're going to sell everything. And we're just going to find all these little towns that we've read about for the past 5 years. Mm-hmm. And we did it. But it wasn't until a month before we were about to load up our rented minivan because we sold our cars. I mean, we legitimately sold everything. The only thing we stored was the kids' artwork and our personal papers. That was it. Like, and our clothes. Obviously, we took some clothes, but we downsized that as well. So a month before we left, a friend of ours, really at that point, they're friends now, but at that point they were the parents of our daughter's friend. And he's a comedian by the name of Bert Kreischer.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. And his wife is LeeAnn, and they both have successful podcasts. And we were at their house for a graduation brunch.
Yeah.
So our daughters were both graduating senior year. And he approached James and said, I heard about what you guys are doing. You're selling everything. You're just going to travel the country and look for a new hometown. You should podcast about it. And what was your answer to him when he said that?
Oh, well, he took me into the studio and he was showing me around, and I didn't realize he was sort of pitching me on the idea of you should do a podcast until, that was his clincher. And I looked at him and I said, well, isn't it like super saturated now? And it's all celeb based. Like I weed through more podcasts than I actually listen to now. And he said, no, he said, that's not true. And he said, especially if you can find something unique that you're going to be doing where you're going to be the expert on it. And you guys will definitely be the experts a year from now, So it was inspiration. We mulled it over for a little while.
Yeah, for like a month.
Yeah.
We did. And then what ended up happening is he came to me and he said, hey, have you thought about what Bert said? And I was truly thinking about it. What I was thinking about was somebody as successful as him thought about an idea for us. Yeah. And he had put the space in his brain. We were there somewhere. And I thought, okay, this guy pretty much, he's a hard worker. He comes up with creative ideas. If he's saying we should do it, we should try. This wasn't like the guy next door. This is somebody who has like 5 Netflix specials, who sells out arenas. And so I was like, all right, let's try it. So when he came to me, he said, what do you think? I said, where do you want to do it? So we did our very, very first episode in our dining room in our home in Los Angeles.
Yeah, before we left.
Yeah, it was 30 minutes. We didn't know what to talk about. So we just talked about the idea of what we wanted to do. And we were going to be leaving in about a month. And I sent that episode to Bert's personal assistant. I mean, I didn't really even know his wife. I had to get her number from our daughter. Right. And I said, I don't know if Bert mentioned this to you, but he suggested we do a podcast about our travels. How do I get in touch with him? And she said, send it to his assistant. So I did. And then 2 days later, LeeAnn called me and said, can you do a FaceTime? And they loved it. And she said, we get submissions all the time, like all the time. She said, in the minute that Bert hit play, he looked at me and said, wow, this is really good. What do you want to do with it? And she did say we were really apprehensive about listening to it because
if it sucked, they didn't want it to affect the friendship between their daughter and ours.
Yeah,
you know what I mean?
So then she came back with a few suggestions. She did suggest we make it a little longer. She had some technical suggestions on mics and whatnot. Yeah. And then she said, re-record it. I don't even know if she said re-record. I don't know, but we recorded it and made it an hour long. And then to our surprise, about a week later, she asked us to be on her podcast.
Yeah.
Mhm.
That is kind of what launched everything for us. So the actual day we left, got in the car, got in the minivan, she launched the podcast with us on it. And then we launched our little 1 hour in our dining room to support that interview. And that really helped. So that is actually how the podcast itself got started. We never anticipated recording our adventures ever.
No.
And then we thought we met some listeners early on, people that found us through LeeAnn and Bert, and they were really supportive. He actually said to us, if you can make it beyond 21 episodes, that's a success. And then when you look at the numbers, it's unbelievable. I think there's something like 1 million podcasts out there, but only 80,000 or 100,000 that are over episode 21. Because
I think they say 98% stop before the 21st episode.
Because it's so hard and no one gets it. There's not a single person that understands how hard it is. Nobody, unless you're doing it, unless you're 100% doing it, you don't realize the time it takes just to record and forget being the engineer, the sound engineer, the lighting expert, the content creator, the editor, the poet in the descriptions. I mean, the hashtag expert, the geotag. You haven't even recorded yet.
I would also
toss it up. Toss it up.